Alright, so here we are on the classwork video for lesson 16. So the purpose of the video is just kind of to get you started and to go through some problems that maybe caused a bit of troubles in the past for students. So we're going to look at number 1 because I think this is probably one of the most important questions and setups that you will see in this entire topic, and you need to know how this works. But before we do that, we are going to put our formulas up at the top for circumference. So if you remember, we can either use C equals pi d, or we can do C equals 2 pi r. So either one of those. So if we look at number 1, it says to find the circumference. So what they gave us here is called the radius because that just goes halfway. So the radius is 14. But if we wanted to, we could say that the diameter all the way across would be 28, right? If we put another 14 over here, 14 plus 14 gives us 28. So part A says to give an exact answer in terms of pi. So that means that we would just leave the pi symbol in. So it would be like C equals pi times, and we can use D, which would be 28. So our answer would just be 28 pi centimeters. So if you remember, we've talked about how on your calculator your calculator rounds eventually because your screen isn't big enough to have an infinite amount of numbers. So by just putting the pi symbol, that's the most exact because that's leaving pi in its truest and most exact form. Now in part B, it says to use the approximation 22/7 and express your answer as a fraction in lowest terms. So here I'm going to have C equals 22/7 times 28 over 1. So you can cross divide with the 7 and the 28. This becomes a 1, this becomes 4. So when I multiply across, I would get 88 over 1. So this would be 88 centimeters. Okay. Now the last one says to use the pi button on your calculator and express your answer to the nearest hundredth. If I take what I had from part A, which was my 28 pi, and now I go and I type that in, I've got a calculator pulled up here, so 28 times pi equals, sometimes you have to hit equals, sometimes you don't, depends on the calculator, and they said round to the nearest hundredth. So if we look at the hundredth there, which is 6, there's a 4 next to it, we would just leave it as 6. Answer would be 87.96 centimeters. So if you look, that's pretty close to what we had in part B, and that's the point, is that no matter which way they ask you to do it, you're going to get about the same answer. We're never going to get a truly exact answer unless we just leave it as pi. Okay, so that will help with many of these questions. The other one I want to look at is number 4, where it says to consider the diagram of the semicircle shown. All right, so if we look at number 4, and part A says explain in words how in the perimeter of a semicircle. So remember, perimeter and circumference are the same thing. So what we're going to do is we are going to find, and we're not going to find the full circumference, we want to find half the circumference. So find half the circumference because it's a semicircle. Now remember, that would only count for this part I shaded in purple. So now on top of that, we also have to add in the diameter, which is the bottom part that I shaded here in orange, okay? So if you're doing any questions that involve semicircles, it's really important to remember to add that back in. So in part B, it says using D to represent the diameter of the circle, write an algebraic expression that will result in the perimeter of a semicircle. So we're trying to, again, perimeter and circumference are the same thing. Okay, so sometimes you'll see they'll use the letter P. Right now I'm going to use the letter C. So C equals, so if we have, they want us to use the letter D, so we know usually it would be C equals pi D, but that's for a full circle. So you'd have to divide it in half, but then you also have to add in the diameter again. Okay, so you could write it this way, or if you're not a fan of how that looks, you could have 1/2 pi d plus d. Okay? So part C says write another algebraic expression to represent the perimeter of a semicircle using r to represent the radius of the semicircle. So now for this one, you have to remember that our original formula was C equals 2 pi r, but we want half of it, so we have to divide it by 2, plus, and it can't just be 1r because that's only half, it would have to be 2r. Okay, now I know some of you are like, well, can't those 2's in the first part cancel? Yes, but for the sake of they just kind of want what the expression would look like, we can just leave it like this, or we can make it look like the other one and have the 1/2 in the front, which is that divided by 2 part, times 2 pi r plus the 2r. Okay? So that's all I'm going to do in the video. If you have any other questions, so feel free to send me an email with a picture of the problem that you're stuck on, but this is all we will do for now.